Answers with Dr. Reju is a platform where we take a more in-depth and intentional look into various life issues and bring clarification so we can navigate our way through with knowledge. Join us on Patrice Radio as we take this journey to discovery. Do remember to follow, like, and engage us on Instagram at Patrice_radio and also on YouTube via Patrice Radio Live. Thank you.
Thinking of where to go to? Be on board with Patrice Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Answers with Dr. Reju, where critical life issues are clarified. My name is Lois and I'm in the studio with Joseph and of course Dr. Reju, the Chief Resource Person of the Center for Transformational Leadership, CTL JOS. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Lois. Glad to be here.
Good evening, Lois.
Okay, today we'll be looking at patriotic citizenship even in crisis. Sir, what should responsible citizens do or be doing at this time?
Well, what responsible citizens do? They obey the laws of the land. And, the word being patriotic, is actually where the name of this whole radio station comes from. Patrice is the word from the word patriot, and is the one who advocate, fight, promote, the interest of his or her nation. So, it doesn't really change. Whatever it is that promote the good of your nation, of your society, that's what responsible citizens do. That's what patriotic citizens do. So it's patriotic to obey the laws of the land. That's what, but there are sometimes when the laws of the land, right, doesn't really promote the best interest of the country, of the society. So at such a time too, it is patriotic to fight, for a law, that, laws that sort of frustrate the progress, the prosperity, the well-being of the society must be resisted with everything. And patriotism is what will make us resist that kind of law. When you make it difficult for citizens to obey a law, that means there's something wrong with that law, right? Uh-huh. I gave an example once that I'm a very, to a large extent, I'm a very law-abiding person. I like to stop when I'm driving at a zebra crossing, at a pedestrian crossing. But there's sometimes when I want to stop, the person behind me, might kill the person that I'm stopping for. So when a society becomes very toxic lawfully, in terms of law, patriotism becomes difficult. And that is a major symptom of a society that's sick.
Yeah. So, there's this saying that crisis reveals who we are. Mm-hmm. And as Nigerians, for the past years, we know that Nigerians are passive people. Mm. We've not been very proactive as to our responsibility. Mm. So in this case, what strategies should we use? There's a social media that other nations have used, and it triggered a revolution in those nations. But our own, when we go on social media, most times we see that it is either jokes or we're making fun of things. Yeah. So what strategies should we learn from what can work now?
That's a good question. I'm going to answer that question first of all by trying to clarify when you say Nigerians are passive people. If you say that before a South African, we think we are talking about another nation. If you say that, to a British or to an American that Nigerians are passive, you will, what? Nigerians are known to be aggressive people. They are self-starters. They are very industrious. They are not passive. Nigerians are only passive when it comes to patriotism. Right?
Yeah.
Because, you see, you can't fall in love with nothing. And that's what we must keep reminding ourselves of. We can't say it enough. It's not just difficult to be patriotic towards Nigeria. It's impossible. Why? There's nothing called Nigeria. That's the point. You know, we can't move forward if we don't address that. You can't love nothing. You can't fall in love with nothing. You can't hug air. So there is no Nigeria. That's why it's difficult, or not just difficult, it's impossible. It's impossible. So that's why when we talk patriotism, we will just be very academic. You know, we'll be very academic. So you're saying what kind of, for instance, the reason why it's difficult to engage in, to use social media, right, to engage is because there's no one language, right? There's no one culture. It was the Arab Spring had a spring because it's monocultural, it's mono-religious, you know, it's because it's very easy to get everybody to understand what we are saying, right? Mm. So you want to do like a PSA, public service announcement, right? I got that phrase from Henry. Don't think I'm that smart. You know, you want to do a PSA, you have to first of all think of interpreting in Hausa, interpreting in Yoruba, and saying it in Igbo. You just scratch the surface. Yeah. Pidgin. Do you know Pidgin has many shades? There are a lot of Pidgins you speak that somebody will not have a clue. Sure. There is the hardcore Pidgin that comes from Warri. Mm-hmm. That somebody that lives in Jos won't even, you will think the person is speaking Greek. So these are the problems that we have. So you see, if we don't, we can't move an inch. That's why, there's a post I wrote that I said one of the problems we have, one of the evil of colonialism is that we're taught to speak grammar. So we interpret everything, and people have all kinds of interpretation. We analyze, and like they say in the academic circle, there's paralysis of analysis. Yeah. So we analyze so much and we become paralyzed, so there's no action. So you discover that it's impossible to galvanize the people until the power trickles down. That the person, that the community leader in Jenta is the one on top of stemming the tide in Jenta. Not one minister, a big man that you can't even call his name. You must first of all put honorable or his excellency before you call their names. If that's the guy doesn't know Jenta. This is the issue. The man can't serve. He can't serve Angwarogo. He cannot. It's impossible. So we are still playing games. There are patriotic Gentans, or is it Gentarians you call them? Or Gentans. They love their community. They will do anything for peace in that community. Yeah. If there is a thief in that community, they will hunt the person down. But the strategy can't come from Abuja. So it's, for us in Nigeria, we're just flying blind. They say it's autopilot. Even if it's autopilot plane, it's not flying blind. There is a flight plan. Yeah. So the pilot, the thing is set. There is a setting that the plane is. So it's that's why it's difficult. But I won't use the word difficult. It's impossible to be patriotic in Nigeria. It's impossible.
So I want to ask, what is possible?
It becomes possible when, like I said, you can't fall in love with nothing. You fell in love with a guy, right? That you just got married, right? Yeah. It can't be. Even if it's his photograph, that's not real. You can't hug a photograph, right? It must be someone that's tangible, that's real. So what's possible is when we have a nation, right, that we can touch, we can interact with, that talks back at us, that feel us and we feel it, right? That's when patriotism is possible. Because what we have right now, people are people first. Then people connect with a place, right? When they connect with that place, they become proud of that place, right? Because that place, they shape it, the place shapes them, so there is a connection. There's a mutual kind of benefit. That's what happens to a British. That's what happens to an American. You right? That's what happens to someone from New Zealand. New Zealand is not just it's not a mirage. It exists. Britain exists. I was there when my sister, who happens to be a British citizen, she turned 70 and she got a letter that you are now a senior citizen. From today, you will no longer pay. No, 65. You will no longer pay for public transportation.
Wow.
Yeah. From today till you die, anywhere you go within this country is free. Why won't you be patriotic to that kind of country, right? For example, in Britain, when you turn 100, you get a personal letter from the Queen. Personal one, from the Queen, that you turn 100. Now, that's what generates patriotism, right? There's a man who turned 100 of recent, who fought in the Second World War, right? The man raised over close to like 15 million pounds because he's built a reputation. What was he doing? He was just doing 100-meter walk in her compound. People were donating to help COVID, So you discover that we have allowed the public, the government, politicians, and others to just be cool, and we take their place. We are the ones trying to feed the poor. Those things are supposed to be add-ons. If that's our reality, patriotism, you're only patriotic to that NGO.
Yeah.
Your loyalty is to that NGO, to that, kind of organization. Not people don't get nothing from government. That's so it's impossible to be patriotic. Not even difficult. Government is absent.
Sure.
And we keep on going until we say no, not anymore. That's when we begin, to now begin to see how if the government doesn't touch me, right? I don't care if the president is absent. I don't care if my governor, I don't know where he is. The governor travels, he doesn't travel. Nobody cares. Right? Nobody cares. So, Lois, there is no way to be patriotic. Even if you want to bring in the popular saying of J.F. Kennedy, don't say what your country will do for you. Think of what you will do for your country. It's a symbiotic kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Not parasitic, right? That's why it's difficult in Nigeria to say you want to ask people for tax. What have you given them?
True.
It's as simple as that. Patriotism is impossible.
Okay, sir. So how should the citizens now respond to issues like this and make sure this the people in government and even the private sector, because they have a social corporate responsibility to the people they are serving? For us as citizens, we have been dribbled to a corner. So when you talk about protest, when you talk about civil disobedience, it's as if you're advocating for violence. But something, I've said it many times on many episodes on this program, Nigerians need to learn the art of protest because people have to go and fend for themselves. We have to be realistic. People get to a point where the natural human instinct for survival will make you, make a decision. Do I want to die of hunger?
We all know that you are not someone who subscribes to giving money to beggars. So what is your opinion on reaching out to those who are in need?
No, they are not beggars. Those who are in need are not beggars. Right? They are just victims of a circumstance that's beyond everybody's control. So such people, right, need help. Their needs are obvious. Human beings are not designed to get things free. Right? You are supposed to work, and that's where I have problem with the Nigerian and African variant of Christianity when they talk about money. It's just a bunch of heretics. When they talk about money that you give so that you can get, it's economically faulty, it is not biblical, it is socially ignorant, it doesn't work. But you know what has happened? That people have turned begging, especially, you see, everywhere you see a culture of begging, it goes with poverty. Right? Everywhere. Even in Europe, the major problem they have in a place like the United Kingdom is the culture of benefits, where you don't have a job, the government give you money. So people with fake insanity, right, so that they can get free money. And that is a weight, right, on the government. So when I said it on maybe another radio program that I said, I don't give money to beggars. And I was one who said, so because if I give the beggar money, I've not solved this problem. Is he going to be there tomorrow? And this guy told me details off air, which I'm going to say here, that in Jos there is an association of beggars. They have an executive. He said their president has properties. The president of the Beggars Association. That's what people have used your money for. Most time those who are begging, they are richer than those who give them. You can't have a begging culture. It's inhuman. It's very dehumanizing. Right? So it's not that I hate, because that's not poverty. Poverty is not lack. Poverty is inability to produce. That's why poverty is mental. Wealth is not a lot of money. Wealth is ability to produce, to add value. Nigeria is poor because we have crude and we can't convert it to petrol.
Yeah.
That's why we're poor. So whatever you can add value to, whatever you can, bring from raw to usable, when you lack that ability, you're poor.
True.
You're poor. So Nigeria, that's why you have NAPEP. What's NAPEP?
I think
National Poverty Alleviation. And you don't alleviate poverty, you eradicate it. Because humans are not meant to be poor. The human being is the most prized asset on the face of the earth. Why? There is no other asset that can ever be translated to value without human input.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of things. Any culture, any religion, that's why churches, mosques, all of them promote this kind of prayer. I posted something. Have you not noticed that societies that don't pray are richer than those who pray?
True.
If prayer makes people wealthy, Nigeria will be the wealthiest. Africa will be the wealthiest.
Yeah.
So it's deception. And in that kind of situation, when people do all those kind of things, that they come back to themselves, they said, there's no way I can be committed to this country. This country has added nothing to me. That's what makes patriotism impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because patriotism is not you being committed to a person. You are committed to a nation. You are committed to a culture. You are committed to, to a way of life. There's something they call the American dream. We don't have a Nigerian dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is no Nigerian project. We are not headed anywhere. We don't know whether we are succeeding, whether we are failing. So we live day to day. So in that kind of, if I have my way today, I will lock every church. I'll cancel churches. I'll cancel mosques. Religion is one thing I will proscribe in Nigeria. I'll tell every Nigerian, the religion of this country is our constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah. The God we serve here is our laws. If you don't worship that law, you go to jail.
Yeah.
Just the way the Christians say, if you don't worship God, you go to hell.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would do if I ever have any influence anywhere in this country, first of all, I will create very comfortable prisons, because people will go there.
A lot of them.
Yeah. The prisons will be very, will be like Sheraton. Because people will go there. Because when you go to prison, you can come out as a PhD holder.
Yes.
We will change it from prison to what is supposed to be correction centers.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Second one is I will now invest in orientation. And then the most powerful politician in Nigeria will be a local government chairman.
That's what prisons should be. I have a different, feeling about prisons now. It's not what we see it now. It's some place that people should really be in, because it's supposed to change their mindset, absolutely, right? Absolutely. But it's a place
people
of
come
torture.
Out of prison worse.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yes, and hardened.
And then they want to go back. They just
because there's free food.
Yeah.
There's free food.
Yeah. So, sir, talking about begging, you raised that issue, and then we've been talking about social amenities.
Yeah.
In other communities, crime has increased because of issues like this. I had a story of a woman was cooking. She just went inside to pick something, and the pot
They've carried the pot of soup.
Yeah. And
funny, but serious.
Yeah.
Right? Serious. Yeah. Because for someone, you see, when I say this thing, people might think, why are you excusing crime? You see, there was time I had the opportunity of speaking with a former armed robber, and he said armed robbery is tough. It's a tough job. That is more difficult than working in the civil service. No human being wants to be an armed robber. The risk, the planning, the getting high, right? The amount of Indian hemp you need to consume
so that you can be
so
tough.
that you can be so inspired. So the reality is no human being. See, I study sociology, and I know that no human being wants to steal. It's desperation. It's the survival instinct, right? Survival instinct that now creates fear. And it gets to a point where the person stealing becomes his reality, that this is the only way to survive. The person that steals government money is out of fear of tomorrow. His security is looking for. Right? So when you see crime, you discover that the criminal is a victim. And the person that's supposed to prevent crime also is a victim. When you have a policeman, like I said in that my post, that live in a shack with 5 kids, is thinking of how to send the kids to school, right? In the frustration, he gets into alcoholism, and then you give him an AK-47 to go to the roadblock. All of us are victims. You see, crime is the only thing that can stem the tide of crime, that can even eliminate it, is a sense of security. If that person knows that the basics of life, you see, Nigerians need to understand that there are some things that human beings shouldn't think about. What to eat, what to wear, where to live.
Yeah.
When a human being is subjected, dehumanized to think about those things, crime is a natural consequence. Sure. My wife was saying, yesterday that there are beautiful houses in Jos. I wish there are no fences. And I reminded her, I said, we went to my sister's house, my younger sister's house in the US. There's no fence. I said, that's even the US. My father's house, where we grew up in our village, we don't have fences.
Yeah, even our houses in those days, there were no fences. Yeah.
But it got to a point where we feel insecure because somebody lacks something that is going to look for that I have. and is going to go to any length. The first time my father's car was stolen, it was right in front of the house. That's where we've been parking it for ages. No fence, maybe the doors are not even locked. And I reminded my wife, I said, do you remember one time I was at home and I wanted to go out, and I didn't know where they put the key to the house. So I waited. My sister got back and I said, I wanted to go out today. And he said, no, you should have just gone. You should have left the door. You don't have to lock the door. Yeah. This is 2 years ago. You don't have to lock the door. You can go out. I said, really? Yeah. You don't have to lock the door.
Okay, so sir,
crime is a natural consequence of people's sense, sometimes false sense of insecurity. What I need, is not given. I have to get it whichever way. Right?
Yeah.
Whichever way. But if you're going to punish the criminal, right, you must let the person know that there's no reason to do that. Right? There's no reason to do that. If you walk, you get it. Right? I'm not saying there are no pervs, no criminals. That's the reason why you go to, maybe in developed countries, when somebody commits a crime, their first sign is motive. They begin to look for, is there a mental, because there's no reason. There's no reason.
And then sometimes some people commit crimes to get back at society.
Because of a perceived injustice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you raise the issue of poverty, and then I was thinking, considering that a lot of people, some NGOs are helping, giving people. What if these people get used to these handouts, and after post-COVID, they become passive in productivity?
Because that's what it produces, right? And that's why even the NGOs themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's self-help.
Yes.
Some for money, some for fame, some for good followership on Instagram, which translates to money eventually, and all those kind of things. So, you see, the issue is, whatever economic program you put in place, right, the first question you must be able to answer is this sustainable? If it is not yes, then it's not going to work. So you can't depend on an NGO that's giving handouts. Handouts will never be a long-term economic. Yeah, it must be productivity. We must be able to produce. If you look at the history of how the economy of this country was plundered, we were basically just exchanging our dollars that we're getting from oil for stuff. We're importing toothpicks, import everything. Right? That killed everything that we ever stood for. We got to a point where we wear used clothes. Yeah. When we had tailors, when we had textile industries before, we are now buying used clothes. It's how low humans can get. There is a guy, I will continue to say it. It will follow him to his grave, that governed this country, right? Between 1985 to maybe 93 or 93. That guy destroyed this country with his cronies. That will follow him to his grave. His name is not being touted. We're talking of Abacha loot. Abacha stole money, but somebody stole our minds. Somebody gave us a culture. That, even if no human being says it, will follow him. In fact, he will die before his death. And I know he's dying.
He's dead. Okay. All right, we've come to the end of the program for today. We'll see you next week for another exciting episode. Thank you for listening.
Thinking of where to go to? Be on board with Patrice Radio.